Welcome to the Dealmaker Catalyst, and I'm your host, Jason Seward, and today we have Miss Alie Murphy. Alie Murphy is a business operations strategist and consultant who helps founders turn chaos into clean, scalable systems. With a background spanning healthcare administration, tech, real estate, and high-growth startups, she specializes in building structure that actually works in real life, not just on paper. Alie is known for her no-nonsense approach to operations, CRMs, and execution, helping business owners scale sustainably while protecting their time, energy, and sanity. Miss Alie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
I am very excited about this, and you came on my other podcast, Burning the Ships. I had to look back; it was almost 2 years ago.
I know that's crazy,
Right.
right?
And so before we even get into everything, I'm going to encourage folks, and we'll drop the link in the show notes. Go back and listen to that episode because after listening to this one, because I think once you hear everything Alie talks about, and then go back and listen to her story, because that was, you telling your story and kind of all the mindset behind everything you're going to talk about today. It'll kind of put the puzzle together. And but Alie, I'm excited for this because today we're going to dive in to something that I think there's very few exceptions. I think all business owners hit this bottleneck point where they have an idea, or maybe it's an idea that's been around forever, but they're going to act on it, grow a business, but they get to that point where things are going good, but it does not function unless they're in it 60, 80 hours a week. So they become the bottleneck to their own growth. So we're going to dive into like all things all strategies that can kind of help folks and things they need to think through and structuring things moving forward from there. So I'm excited to share you with the audience and your ideas all around those things. So
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
yep, you're welcome. So let's get started. So you're in Virginia. Where are you originally from, Alie?
Virginia. I
Okay.
haven't moved basically. Where I live now is 10 minutes up the road from where I grew up.
Gotcha. And you and your husband Corey and your family, y'all live a life, and you're able to, where y'all travel all over the country. Your daughter is heavy into rodeo and all of that. So y'all, a lot of times, there's certain seasons of the year where you're on the road more than you are at home. So you are actually living a perfect example of all the things you're going to talk about, how to run and operate a business without you having to be stuck somewhere all the time. So I think a good place to start would be just sharing what in yours and maybe yours and Corey's life kind of, what was the evolution to get y'all to a point to where you're able to do things this way with this mindset around growing a business?
So for us, I think, it's taken a lot of time. We've messed up a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes. I don't like to say we failed, but we've fallen a lot. Um, I think experience is the best teacher. So, for us, I think setting up systems, knowing that they'll take care of everything if we can't, or if we're out of range, or if we end up not having if we have an emergency somewhere, that our systems will kind of take over things. Also, what we didn't do in the past, when we first started our businesses, was document everything. So we had nothing to hand off. It was all in our heads. So now we have system or processes to be able to hand off to whoever needs to jump in and take over things.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of things we have automated, and I have things automated pretty far out to where if something happened today, most everything is taken care of for a while.
Yeah. And you talk about systems. I mean, my very first experience with you was, I don't know how we originally connected, but I know I got a Calendly link or some type of link to schedule. And then from there, it was very clear, like it felt on my end as the consumer, who was trying to talk to you, very personal, but I know that there was a system involved that got me scheduled. And then when I went to go on that meeting with you, it was a Zoom meeting or whatever it was, there was a VA that kind of like had me in a waiting room and then brought you in and it was very clear to me that this was a system. Like, you weren't the one that was having to do all the mechanicals and all the in the weeds of getting to that point of where you're talking to me. And you were very efficient in that conversation, and we talk about what we need to talk about and move on. So I saw early on, and this is a couple years ago, but how you are actually living what you're going to be talking about today. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's really important to know what you don't need to be doing, and being able to delegate properly, which I am very guilty of doing it the wrong way. Um, you know, talking about delegation and having somebody, be able to, as a receptionist, they need to know what they're doing. You can't just say, hey, come be my receptionist. Here you go. Here's a computer and do it. Um, and I messed up in that way. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, we're so busy and our minds are just always going, 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 that it's really hard for us to pause and say, this is how you do it. This is how you're successful, to help everyone be successful.
Yeah.
That is very hard for us to be able to do, is just take that and actually,
Yep.
give them the tools to be successful.
Yep, I don't disagree with that. And what I kind of where I want to take this today is because I want, you know, the listeners out there to, they're going to relate to probably many things you talk to or talk about today, especially if they're trying to grow and run their own business or even start their own business. But I'm gonna encourage everybody, if you don't, if you're driving, come back and listen to this, but get a pen and a paper, and Allie's going to kind of go through, she's going to identify some of the bottlenecks you're probably feeling in your own business, and then some levers you can pull to efficiently work through those. So I guess my first question, Allie, to kind of set all this up, what is, through your experiences in your own businesses, but also dealing with a lot of other entrepreneurs, helping them go through these issues, what's, if you had to pick one or two common denominators that you see as far as bottlenecks that folks face early in business, what are they?
Taking on everything, doing their own follow up, which nobody should be doing once they get to a certain point. Answering their own calls, nobody should be doing that. Not setting boundaries is huge.
Yep.
And if anyone knows me, you know that I've had a problem with that. I am the type of person that loves to see people succeed. And if somebody says, "Hey, I have a problem," I want to be like, "Okay, let's fix it," because we want to fix it right now for them, and that's success for me. So, and it's that dopamine hit. You know what I mean? That you get when you're successful. So, um, I think boundaries are huge. And then being able to let's see, like, people aren't utilizing their CRMs. So they have a CRM, they have their contacts in there, and that's all they use it for, a storage facility. And there's so much more to your systems. If you use Google Drive, there's so much stuff in there that you could use that you don't even know. Like, we used to use Slack for our chat channel. We moved everything over to our Google Workspace, and we have like, all of our clients are have their own rooms, and so we talk to them in there. We handle all of, any conversations in there. You can say you're on your calls, you can save your call to that chat so everybody knows, and then our team chats are there. So we don't have to go outside of into another platform. I think a lot of us, we see a shiny object and we're like, that's working for this person. Let's go change to that. After you just spent 10 grand to set this up, you find something else that looks like it could be better when it's typically not, and you're just kind of almost procrastinating.
Yeah.
Just do the work. You get something set up and do the work, instead of, I think a lot of times we hop around to continue to find the best thing when you probably already have it. You just don't know how to use it yet.
Do you think it's fair to say that, I know it was the case in my business, but people get to a point where they're almost, because they don't understand what that looks like, they can't comprehend what it looks like, but they do understand the price tag that comes along with it, right? They might get a quote to implement a CRM, or maybe even have a consultant like you. I know you do a lot of this, but a consultant come in to help them structure it, and they see a big price tag, and immediately, it doesn't matter what they're going to get. It's like, our business is not at a point to justify that type of expense or spend. Do a lot of people get hung up on that, you think?
I have.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, for sure. I think that's very valid. I think that we also don't see the value sometimes.
Mhm.
So we just see the price tag.
Yep.
So instead of knowing that if you spend, I'm just going to use the number 10 grand, it's easy, 10 grand, right? If you spend 10 grand, if somebody says they can 10x it for you and say they can, we don't think about that. We don't even know what that is. If we don't have 10 grand to spend, then we're not going to spend it,
Right.
you know? So it doesn't matter if they can 10x it. We have to be able to have it and keep the business going until it does 10x. And that's the scary part.
Yep. What do you say to the businesses that, I mean, like we're talking early on, they're running everything, like you said. So that's the bottleneck. Their hands are in everything. They know I need to delegate. I need to offload some of this. But truly, the revenue is not there. Like in order for them to do it, something has to happen first to provide the revenue or the capital to be able to afford this additional expense. What levers do you recommend to folks? Do they just have faith that find the money and go spend it and then the revenue will come? Or is that what you recommend?
I think asking the question, why isn't the revenue there?
Yeah.
And what creates that revenue? Because if you're the one who creates that revenue, then that kind of answers your question. What are you doing?
Hmm.
If you're the one who's talking to people and that's how you make your money, then what are you doing and not talking to people? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I've got a mentor that it's so simple, especially for me because I'm a hunter, so it resonated with me. But he told me one time, he said, "You're spending too much time cooking rabbits. You need to go hunt rabbits. That's where your time is best spent. So find a cook and you go out and hunt more rabbits. Then the revenue is going to follow it." And it's kind of, I think that's kind of so like there is a period when you transition from cooking to hunting, it will be a step back. But if you do it the right way with the right strategy and the right people and the right mentorship, that's a one step back, four steps forward pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like using your analogy, which I love,
Mhm.
I think everyone has to start out as the hunter and the cook.
Yeah.
You just do. And then once you kind of start hunting enough and you have a lot to cook, then that's when you build connections and figure out, okay, who can I bring in as the cook who can be better than me, not as good, but better, so I can continue to hunt the rabbits and bring that to them so they
Right.
can be successful as cooks.
Do you find a lot of and we'll get into some like strategy. I want to talk like I'm gonna ask you questions, but then I want to talk about some strategies to get through these. And I think I know the answer to most of the questions I'm going to ask, but I want to share them with the audience. But do you find a lot of folks are it, they've put a lot of faith in themselves to start a business, so they've taken some risk to get going in this business. But the next step, they're doing everything, but the next step requires somebody else putting faith in them. So if they're hiring somebody, for example, so they're gonna at some point convince somebody to leave a career potentially that they're in, that they've been in for a while, to come work in their startup business, their new business. So now it's not just faith in yourself, uh, and if you fail, it's just hurting yourself, but now you're hurting someone else. Do you think people get hung up in that fear and it keeps them from moving forward sometimes?
I think there's two types of people. I think yes, and that's kind of how I am. I really have to fight that urge of knowing we're going to make it no matter what. But then there's another type that sometimes doesn't actually, not that they don't care, but maybe they don't think through it that much. It's to benefit them. So, I work with both, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you build a business to benefit you, really. I mean, to help you, right? So I think sometimes both sides get caught up on totally opposite ends. This is fear, and this is ego. So sometimes, and you need a little bit of both to be successful, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
That ego sometimes helps you with that confidence to keep going, but the fear every now and then it does keep you a little bit safe when you need to kind of reel it back in a little bit.
Yeah. I I have fortunately, and this is a good and a bad thing, but I don't have much fear. So my problem is that gets me in a lot of rough situations sometimes where like, oh crap, I didn't think through this enough. So the answer to me being that kind of personality is I have to surround myself with people, specifically my business partner, who operates from a point of fear most of the time. Like this is going to go bad. Let's make sure we mitigate the risk and all that. And that's how I've been able to balance it out. It doesn't require me to change anything, to
Yep.
just put somebody on my team that puts the reins on me essentially, if that makes
Or
sense.
y'all can come to a happy medium,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
because I think that's really important when you're building a business to have that balance.
Yeah.
And nothing is truly ever balanced, right?
Nope.
He's going to be more fearful than you want to be sometimes, and you're going to be more confident than he wants to be sometimes. So, I mean, there's never really that true balance, but it is nice to come to that meeting point. And at that point, you all know, okay, these are the risks. Are we willing to take them?
Right. All right. So let's kind of go into I'm gonna set up an example for you, okay? And it's probably one that most people listening to this have either been through or probably most people are sitting in right now. But I'm gonna use a let's say a flipping business. So their business is buying single family homes, fixing them up, selling them to make a profit. And it's just them, right? So they're doing right now, let's call it 15 to 20 deals a month. They're managing all the contractors, they're finding the deals, they're dispoing the deals, they're doing everything in house. And literally, they cannot grow beyond where they are because they're doing everything. They want to grow, they don't know what to do next. So, what would you immediately advise that person to uh, evaluate in their business, and then maybe some levers to pull to break through, start to break through?
So when I hear other people talk about this scenario, the same type of scenario, their advice is always, well, you need to hire someone.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually where things get more complicated because us as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we hire people and just throw it at them.
Yep.
Take care of this for me because I'm over here doing this. And that sets you up for a terrible fall. So, what I always recommend is setting up the process first. How are you doing this? What are you even doing? What are you even going to hand off? And figure that out. Put it in a process to where you literally can hand that process to someone and say, hey, I'm hiring you to do this. This is exactly what I need you to do. This is where you need to log in. This is who you need to call. These are the phone numbers. These are the links. This is, step by step. Because if you don't have that, you're going to be very disappointed. And you're not just setting yourself up for failure, you're setting that person up for failure. So when you hire someone, if you want them to truly want to be a part of your team, you have to make sure that they feel like they're also going to be successful and that they're a part of something. Because if you just throw stuff at them, it's going to be overwhelming and they're going to feel alone. So it's really important to have those processes in place before you bring someone on.
Okay. So I'm gonna I'm gonna play the role. You just gave me that advice, and this would be a real conversation if you were advising me early on in my entrepreneurship journey before I had a partner and stuff. And my answer to that would have been probably like most ADHD type, entrepreneurs. But Allie, I just do things. I don't know what my process is, and I don't know how to articulate and get that on paper. Um, or get it into a system or a process to teach somebody else. What do you advise that person then to do?
So, what I personally do is just start from the beginning.
Mhm.
Like, there's things you do, right? You
Yep.
do the dispo, you're doing everything. You're doing your marketing. Okay, let's start. Example. Let's start with signing into your email. If that's something we're handing off, let's start with there. What email provider do you use?
Right.
Okay, it is literally that step by step. Okay, how do we log in? What's the link to that email provider so they can click on it, go straight to your email, log in? All right, what's the process of you checking your email? If someone else was going to check your email, how would you want them to deliver those emails to you? How do you want to set up those folders? What do you want to see? What do you not want to see? What do you want them to take care of? What do you want to take care of?
Right.
So it's literally breaking it down like that. And it sounds very time consuming. And you know what? It is. And that's what the problem we get ourselves into as business owners is we're just doing all the things and we're not documenting from the beginning. And then when it's really time to hire or typically past the time to hire, we're trying to catch up and get all these processes in order on top of doing all the things.
Yeah. I had, when I was working in my former career, I was in insurance, but I had a manager. This is early in my career, and I was saying these things too, like I'm just overwhelmed. I'm doing everything, and I don't even know what I'm doing. And he made me do probably the most painful experience that I've had as an employee or just in my career, but the one that benefited me the most. He made me do a time audit
Mm.
where I documented for 2 weeks every 15 minutes of my day. Like I carried around a pad with a calendar on it and I documented it. And I did it like a lot of people have to do this and they fake it because they got to report it back to a manager. They want to look, I was true about it. And then we sat down and dissected it all. And we found yes, I was as busy as I thought I was, but 50% of it was stupid stuff. Like, I'm sorry to say it that way, but stuff that not stupid in the sense it didn't need to get done. It was stuff that I was doing inefficiently. I could easily hand that off to somebody that was way more efficient with it than me. And we literally cleared up 50% of my time in that 2 week exercise. So, have you seen something like that be beneficial to business owners?
I have. It's not for everyone.
Right.
Not for everyone. But yes, I've known numerous people who have done that and been very successful with figuring out where should I not be during this time of my day. And the thing is as entrepreneurs and business owners, we are busy, but like you said, sometimes it's just we could save so much time if we were more efficient or if the things we are doing maybe aren't the things we need to be doing.
Right.
It might feel like we need to in the moment, but if you step back for a minute and look at all the other things, it may not be something you need to be doing. Maybe something else is already covering that, you know?
Do you find that a lot of entrepreneurs they get so deep into the weeds of their business they don't even they haven't even taken time to zoom out and identify what their end goal is or what their vision is. They're just grinding, figuring it out as they go without anything to work towards. Is that pretty common?
That's most of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's most of us. I also think that most of us have ADHD,
Yep.
and which is actually a huge gift. But if we don't use it properly, it can really hurt us.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that we sometimes get so busy in our businesses, busy, that we don't take a look at what we're actually doing and fix the system to where we're not so busy, we're effective.
Yeah. Yeah. My talk about ADHD. My wife reminds me of all people. All the time. We have a 9-year-old son that is exactly like I was when I was 9 years old. And I constantly like, what is wrong with him? What is he doing? Like he just won't slow down. And she reminds me all the time, he is you. And now you as an adult, you're doing pretty well. So it's a superpower. Let him just develop into what it is. And I think it can be a superpower. It can also be a crutch for people that don't really know how to manage it. It has been in my life for several times. But um, so we talk about clutter and clutter. When I think about clutter, it's all the things you kind of most entrepreneurs early on let the tail wag the dog, right? They wake up Monday morning, they look at their calendar and they're like, okay, this is what I'm doing this week because it's filled up with all the things that I've allowed to come in. But you talk about, and I mentioned it in the bio, not just building a business that is positioned to scale, not just building a business that is successful from a revenue point standpoint, but building a business that can do all that allows you to live a life. And you mentioned earlier, there's no such thing as complete balance, but there is such thing as building all of this in a way that you don't resent what you built because you can have a life without it. So do you mind speaking to that and kind of some strategies and mindsets maybe entrepreneurs need to make a priority to get to that point?
So this hits home to me because I've built a couple different businesses, and I've I've built them to where they're very successful, but they did not fit my life, the life I wanted. and which has been very hard for me to let go of because they're businesses that I actually enjoy doing, but they took me away from the life that I wanted to live. And so actually in the past year, I've let a lot of that go. My business is uh a lot smaller now as far as what it takes to run it, but it's a lot more successful, and my life is so much happier. And I think and I can live it. I actually know what freedom feels like versus everyone says they want peace and freedom, but nobody knows what that is, right? They say, "Oh, my family is my why." But what does that mean? Right? Everyone's family is their why. Everyone wants to travel. But what does that mean? Like, okay, is that a dream or is that something we're actually going to do? So, and that's a very hard place to get to, I think. I failed so much. I had some resentment towards my business. I just didn't feel free. I loved what I was doing, but when it came to the important things, I had to choose whether it was going to be my business or my family. And when that becomes painful, it's time to start making a decision. And this past year, I did. I made a couple decisions, and it actually benefited my business like literally 10x doing that, which I was scared, so scared to let go of things because you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to lose everything. You don't know if you're going to have to start from scratch. But it actually, me being feeling free helped me grow my business even more. So it was pretty cool evolution, but it was scary.
Yeah. I I think that a lot of entrepreneurs hear that and they just cannot see they can't see that bridge to cross over from how they're doing things now to how they could be. And a lot of times, more times than not, and this is the hardest pill to swallow in business, it requires a step back, sometimes from a revenue standpoint, a lot of times,
Yep.
because sometimes that step back means you've got to hire either an employee or a consultant or somebody to help you get through this bottleneck. So it means less money in your pocket this next year. But more times than not, especially if you've aligned with the right mindset and the right people, it's a big leap forward. So, and you just probably taught a perfect example of that you've experienced in your own life and business. So,
Yeah, I think you have to be willing and know that to give up some of those things that could be painful. But you have to want it bad enough. You have to want that peace and freedom bad enough to be okay with not making as much money immediately. You know, if you have to get rid of clients, if you have to close down a part of the business that made you a lot of money, I think you have to be willing. It has to be worth it to you. You have, and what I mean is just saying my family is to me, for me is not enough. That's not my why is peace and freedom, right? My I want to be able to show up peacefully for my family. I want to be free enough to take them to the doctors when they need to go. Those little things, that is the why. It's not I hate saying this, but sometimes I feel like when people say, "Oh, it's my why, my family is my why." It's kind of a cop out to me. Like everyone feels that way.
yep,
But why? Like what does that feel like for you?
yep.
I think you just really have to feel it and you have to get to that pain almost in order to feel that, you know?
Some people are scared to face it though.
Yeah.
No, but because if they dissect that enough, they're going to find out if you're saying, and most people do this.
Oh, yeah.
This is more common than not, but most people say, my family is my why. My wife and my husband or my kids, they're my why. They're why I get up and go to work. But if they take that deeper, like you're talking about, they've got to look in the mirror and realize they're not making the decisions
Mhm.
that align with what their why are.
And
Because,
that's me. That was me.
yeah,
It's so easy just to, because everyone says it, like my family, like, why would you say that?
yeah.
Who wouldn't say that? I mean, everyone expects you to say, my family is my why. Everyone expects that from you. But if you don't know what that means, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I'll share this example with you because it's true to me, and it was a pivotal moment. I used to say the same thing. My why was my wife and kids. It still is, but I never went much deeper than that. So I said that to a point where I had a really demanding W-2 career with an insurance company, and I had built this pretty successful real estate company. I had two careers simultaneous and was still saying my family and my kids were my why. I wasn't spending very little time with them, right? And I remember my wife when I was trying to just connect the dots of, do I leave this career to just go full time in this? Because we could, all the financial things were met. Um, but I was like, oh, I got to keep doing it for the family and the kids and to provide. And she said to me very profoundly, I'm going to say it exactly how she said it. But one night she said, me and the kids don't give a shit how much money you make. We just want you here. And so that immediately hit me like, I'm not living my why, right? I'm saying it, but I'm not living it. 2 weeks later, I put in my notice and that was game on for there. But I think I want to share that example, not to make it about me,
No,
but
that hits.
illustrate that, for years I was saying all the right things, but I was not actually living a life or a career, building something that truly meant that.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Corey last night, and I've had speaking engagements, and looking back, sometimes I feel like I wasn't super genuine, because I was just saying the things sometimes.
Yep.
And this year, and I'm speaking at Dealmaker, and I will talk about this in depth, but this year is my comeback year, and a part of that is being the most authentic, genuine person that I can be. Not because I want somebody to clap for me or tell me good job. It's because that's who I want to be for my family.
Right.
And so I want them to be able to look back at a video and say, yeah, that was definitely her. And not look at a video and say, she did not live that life like she was doing. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So that is so important to me. I mean, so important to me. And to me, sometimes looking back, I'm like a little embarrassed because I'm like, that wasn't my genuine self. Like, that's not who I was in that moment. So this year is that year for me to really just say, like, this is it. This is who I am.
I'm smiling because you just said exactly the main reason my other podcast, we've been doing it 3 years now, 200 episodes. The number, and it's only, this is selfish to me, and I'll admit it. The main reason I do that is because I'm talking about all these mindset and lifestyle things, and I'm putting it out there for thousands to see. And if they see me not living what I talk about every week on that podcast, I'm a fraud. So it gives me an extra layer of accountability, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Is that, and that's hard to do sometimes. Um, we're gonna get into some rapid fire questions, but I kind of wanted you to talk about, because I know this gets in everybody's way, mine included, probably yours. Ego. How big of a role does ego? And I'll set this question up by saying this. I think what you started with earlier in the show, talking about how people take a lot of pride in being able to do everything, right? Figure it all out by themselves. Um, my opinion is a lot of that is rooted in ego, right? And you might, a lot of people, and I was guilty of it too, might try to mask that and justify it by, oh, I need to do it. I'm not making the capital to hire somebody, this or that. It was an ego thing. I want to control it. How many people do you see get hung up in that, and how do they get out of it?
Almost every person building a business the ego is there in the beginning because they want to be able to say that they're the ones who did it, and they want to say it was their idea. They're successful because of them, and that is really hard to move past. And
Yep.
honestly, those are typically people that I can't help quite yet. Just because they're not ready. They're still working through that piece, which we've all been there, as building businesses. There's just certain levels where you're ready to move to the next level and acknowledge that, okay, I'm ready to move out of this era, let's get to the next one. So,
So before we get into the rapid fire questions, I want, like, again, we talked about kind of a very specific point in business. It's that bottleneck period that a lot of people spend their entire careers in. They never break through it, or they quit before they have a chance to. But and we talked about, finding out what you can get off your plate, either hiring or so. What i- should someone consider hiring a third party company? Like I know you offer consulting services before they hire that admin assistant, or like what? Yeah, I guess it's dependent on the business, but like what would be the they've done they've assessed their time, they've assessed their duties, they've kind of laid it out like here's the processes in my businesses, what's next, and what would you advise people?
Yeah, so as far as hiring goes, it really depends on the position.
Hmm.
I think if you're hiring an assistant, I think that should not be a third party.
Hmm.
And I used to offer that in one of my businesses is VAs for assistants, but I do not recommend that. I think that you should interview them. I think you should build that relationship with them without that third party being involved.
Hmm.
I think if it's a marketing company, I think when you first start out, you should definitely hire outside. Because the thing is a marketing person is a good one is very hard to find. So you don't want to hire someone, train them, all the things, and then they don't work out. So I think to start off, you should hire an outside marketing company. So it really depends on the position that you need to bring someone in for.
Yeah, yeah, I don't disagree, and that's a tough question to answer because all businesses are different and kind of what they need. But the the general answer, or what I'm hearing, is just figure out what it is you need, what the processes are that that person needs to be doing, and then come up with a plan. And I think a lot of this can always go back to just at worst, link up with a mentor, get somebody else's eyes on what you're doing. Swallow your ego and pride enough to let somebody come in and then give them the authority to be brutally honest with you, right? And don't have your feelings hurt when they say, Jason, this is like you're wasting so much time and effort here. Maybe consider this. So, and I know you do a really good job with that. You don't mind being brutal. So,
Yeah.
yep. All right, let's get into some rapid fire, and then we'll get this thing wrapped up here in a little bit. What is one quote that best describes your overall perspective on life?
Oh, probably discipline is the highest form of self-respect.
Okay, I like that. What belief did you hold early in your journey that later turned out to be dangerously wrong?
For me, it was if I work harder, um everything would work out. And it's not about working harder. And I think as a society in general, um, we all think that we need to work harder to be successful, and that's just not true.
Yep.
Mhm.
There's ways to work hard, and you can disguise hard work with smart work. I mean, the two go hand in hand. They have to. Um, what did you have to give up that you didn't expect in order to start winning?
People who did not fit into people who do not fit me and the way I help people. Sometimes I feel like we all work with people that we mesh with really well. Things just go amazing. Our personalities mix, the way we want to work together mix, the things that want done mesh really well. But I do think there's some that don't. And I think I took on people that I shouldn't have at times, which we all have. Not saying that they're bad in any way, just we just weren't a good fit. And that really prevented me from growing. Really prevented me from growing as a person and as a business. So being able to give that up and for them too. They need to be successful. So you give up someone that doesn't fit you, that could be amazing for them as well. So being able to knowing what you want and what you don't want.
A tangent question off of that, and I think you're speaking to this a little bit, but the importance, or speak to the importance of understanding what your culture is going to be as you build your team. How important is that? Because you got to hire to that culture, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm very straightforward. I am very like this is how it is. And for if I hire an assistant, I want them very kind. I want them very understanding. I want them welcoming, right? So I think it's figuring out what you need in your to have that compliment you.
Yep, I like it. If you had to rebuild from scratch tomorrow, what would you not do again and why?
Uh, I wouldn't focus on scaling fast.
Hmm.
I think that I have done that quite a few times and thought and I've gotten better at I always when I'm building a business, I'm like, okay, let's get this up and going. But I end up missing steps. So I think I've learned so much from just slowing down, just in general, right? In life, just slowing down, figuring it out, like thinking through it, coming up with a plan and following that plan, not just planning it, because sometimes we get stuck on the plan, but actually following that plan once it's created.
Yep. I've gotten so much advice from mentors, and thankfully, before it got too out of control, we listened. But in our lending company, we scaled real fast, like super fast, and could have kept going. And we intentionally, much thankfully, we had Bill because I wouldn't have done this. Like I was just ready to go. But we hit the brakes, and for the last 6 months, we have intentionally turned investors away, not taking capital because we got to build the systems to catch up to where we scaled. And I'm glad we did. And I think that speaks to a lot of times in business. I know you see this. You can increase revenue. You can double revenue sometimes without scaling a bit. Just be more efficient with what you have, already. And I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, because you show up better.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly right. What is and I know you said you don't like to use the word failure, but I'm going to use it in this question.
Yeah.
What is a failure that still influences how you operate today?
Scaling something that wasn't ready to scale. I think from the outside in, a lot of times it looked like growth and people are like, "Oh, you're killing it." And internally it felt like a lot of pressure. There was a lot of confusion, uh, inconsistency. And I was constantly always putting out fires. And that took away from the goal, which is peace and freedom. Um, so yeah, I think not building the systems first, and or the processes. Um, I tell everyone when you build a business, build it to sell, even if you're not going to sell it. Because if you build it to sell, that means you're putting the systems and processes in place to be able to hand off to someone else.
Yep.
Nobody's going to buy it if they don't know what they're doing with it.
Yep. Yeah. That's great advice that I've heard several times, kind of in this form. If as you're building it, you got to build it so you can disappear for 6 months and it runs without you. And until you get there, you're not a business owner.
Yep.
So I love that advice. Alie, what so I want folks to know where they can connect with you, what the best way to reach you, or look into what services you offer and stuff like that. So kind of share with us. We're gonna put a lot of stuff in the show notes and links and emails and all that stuff, but kind of share with people a little bit of an elevator pitch of what you offer and then where folks can find more about you.
So my website is let's talk business.vip. And I have a Facebook group that's Let's Talk Business the Collective. It's free. Please come join it. We talk about a lot of business stuff in there. I'm also on Facebook, Alie Murphy. Um, do you want me to give my email address or how would
That's
you?
up to you. Yep. Well, I mean, we're gonna if you're okay with it, we're gonna drop it in the show notes. But if you want to say it as well, yep.
Okay. I mean, you can always reach out to me at info@letstalkbusiness.vip. Um, I do have a group that's called The Vault. It's a mastermind. It's the founder circle, and we literally go through the 7 steps of creating a structure to scale business.
I like that. 7-step structure to scale. So you kind of, I would imagine it, and probably not as organized as that structure is, but we've touched on a lot of those here today, and I think that's kind of a good place to start. And folks listening, I mean, we've just scratched the surface today with some things to think through, and you're probably in the position that we keep referring to. You just don't know what the next step is, and you're in the bottleneck, and you're, you know, I like to use the analogy of a picture. You're in the picture, and you need to zoom out and look at it from above and see how things look. And Allie's a great resource for that. Again, I want to encourage everybody because Alie, we've talked business today. We've talked very little about mindset in life, and you've got a heck of a story, and you got to share that. Like I said, when you came on Burning the Ships a couple years ago. So, encourage folks to go back and listen to that. We'll put that link below. And Alie, I can't thank you enough. I've known you for a couple years now. I consider you a good friend, and I appreciate you, giving your time to be on this Dealmaker Catalyst podcast. So,
Thank you so much for having me, Jason.
yep, have a good one. That wraps up this episode of the Dealmaker Catalyst. If you want to keep learning from elite operators and plug into a national community that lives this stuff every day, check out Dealmaker Catalyst. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's serious about leveling up. And we'll see you on the next Dealmaker Catalyst.